I didn't want to be a monster anymore, to the world, to my community, to myself. And that's why I'm unapologetically queer in my writing and on these podcasts and on social media, because it's just living your true self, living your and changing that storyline for yourself and living more authentically going forward. Absolutely.
Yeah. Want to listen to this Ivory Tower Boiler Room or True Crime and Academia episode ad-free? Head on over to our Patreon and join either the ITBR student or the ITBR professor level. Both levels of membership have a 7-day free trial. With the ITBR professor level, you also not only get access to all of our video episodes, like listening or watching Scream Part 2, you also get access to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room and True Crime and Academia book clubs. The book clubs are going to each be a 1-hour private Zoom. I'm hosting the Ivory Tower Boiler Room. Mary DePippi's hosting the True Crime and Academia ones. So with the ITBR professor level, you get access to all of our video and audio episodes, plus our book clubs. And make sure you download the Patreon app on your phone for such an accessible, easy to use way to consume our content. Okay, can't wait to see you all on Patreon.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Baker's, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Baker's worth it every time. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Hi, this is Dr. Andrew Rimby, and before you hear such an exciting episode, I want to remind you all that when I'm not here hosting the Ivory Tower Boiler Room, I am running my small business, the Ivory Tower Boiler Room, where I am consulting with clients. It includes academic writing consulting, social media, podcast, and expanding your media footprint. So I have clients I'm working on graduate school writing with them. I can work on thesis writing, dissertation writing, essay advice, college admission essays, undergrad, college advice, graduate school advice. I also am working on a client's small business right now and expanding her social media footprint. I can work on how to create a podcast with you or how to expand your podcast audience. I also can just help you expand your media footprint in general. So, if you're interested in my consulting, I first want to let you all know it is only $30 for the first hour that I work with you on consulting, and then I'll set up a package with you then. So you can email me at ivorytowerboilerroom@gmail.com, or you could go to our Patreon, patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room, and there's a consulting option under memberships. You can pay the $30 and then I will reach out to you right away and we'll set up a consultation. And then while you're on our Patreon, make sure you join the Ivory Tower Boiler Room and the True Crime and Academia Book Club. Every month, both myself and Mary are choosing books for our book club members to read, and we are actually polling our members on Patreon to see what books they want to read, and we're meeting with them the first week of each month. So if you want to join the book club each month, just make sure that you join on Patreon. That way I know who's joined and I can reach out to all of you and let you know when we're meeting on Zoom. Okay, so lots of things to do here in the Ivory Tower Boiler Room, and I can't wait to consult with you, join you for a book club discussion, and have you here listening to one of our podcast episodes. Okay, enjoy this episode. Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Andrew Rimby, and welcome to a very special Halloween episode for the Ivory Tower Boiler Room. I am joined with a repeat guest. Joseph A. Federico is the founder of Anchors to Dust Publishing, LLC. He is a marketing mastermind and has worked with celebrities and Fortune 500 brands for over 10 years. He also has a healthy addiction to the horror genre and has written 3 books, including Voodoo Juice in 2017 and Voodoo Juice Origins, Cody's Story in 2022, which are both currently available for the Halloween season. And if you go on Barnes and Noble, there is an excellent discount that Joseph is offering right now on both books. So yeah, get your hands on his books. So Joseph, welcome to the special, gay culture corner, but very vampiric, witchy, gothic New Orleans themed in honor of your books and our obsessions or healthy fascinations.
Healthy
So welcome back.
fascinations, yes. Thank you so
Yeah,
much
yeah,
for
yeah.
having me, and happy Halloween.
Thank you. Happy Halloween. So
Yes, yes.
what I want to start with first is I know when you last were on, we were talking about your coming out journey, more of like your own queer themes in your work, but
Oh,
also like you becoming more vulnerable and open in your relationship. You were growing a gay friend group. So to start there, like, can you update all of us on, how was your summer? How has it been with your, um, you know, gay friend group, your husband, all of those
yeah.
updates?
So the summer was came and went, but it was one of the cornerstones, one of the bookends that, kind of put the past to rest as far as, questioning where my future was as far as not my relationships, specifically with my long-term, partner, but with my friends in a positive way. Because the summer prior was the summer of growth and the summer of, trying to start to foster these relationships. And even with my relationship, with my partner and with myself. So this summer was an even bigger summer of growth, much more positive, much more streamlined. My best guy friend and his now fiance did come to Myrtle Beach this year, which was a blessing, and grateful for that time that we celebrated their 1 year anniversary, together. We went to the beach. I had gone back to my roots with my partner in crime, my common law husband, where we just went back to having fun and enjoying each other's time. And now we're in a season of change now, all together as a group when the fall and winter approaches and the holiday season. And I'm now looking forward to year number 2 and beyond, where we can really foster those relationships, be more organic with each other, which is really important in any relationship, right, Andrew? But also, especially in newer gay friend group, where there may be biases that we all bring in for ourselves, right? Or these things that we have to overcome, and we are helping each other overcome them, like one trip, one vacation at a time. So I'm just happy to be here and blessed, and not too scared about that future, but the future is the abyss, and we have to go forward with gusto in that sense. So
Yeah,
here we are.
no, I love all you said, and I think that now that I have a boyfriend and we're having more conversations about like I'm going to start meeting his friends. He's already
Yeah.
met like my friend group. Like he's starting to be introduced to more of my friend group. So like when you start to merge friend groups together, I mean also Joseph, maybe we'll have to do a what do we call it? A double date. There you go. Like
Right.
see,
Yeah, I would love
I'm
that.
so out
Absolutely.
of the I'm so out of the game with like a relationship. I'm like, what's it called when couples get together? But
Right. But
I
I'm
do,
in the,
yeah.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Mm. No, no, you're
I
fine.
mean, I'm in the other end of it, because I've been with my partner going on 18 years, and that's like 4 million years in gay time, which is rare, we to be together so long and go through the evolution together, but also being a couple and also bringing in another couple as friends that just, that are young, much younger. You bring in new blood into the relationship, but also into the friend group, and you have a completely different perspective. So I would definitely recommend double dates, finding gay friends, that are platonic but are like family. Like these kids are like my kids. You know what I mean? My like brothers, and it's funny how time flies, but also, you know, goes by very slowly, which I want to savor every moment that we hang out, because those friendships are so special to me and to us. So
Yeah. And I also went to a Halloween party, which was a blast. And I loved, the med spa, skin med spa here in Port Jefferson, Long
Right.
Island, who hosted it. And it was such great energy. But also, I hadn't been to a party with a boyfriend in a really long time. And again, like, and everyone out there knows if they've seen my social media, I've known him since I was an undergrad. So this is
Sure.
11 years.
Yeah.
But like when I'm the single gay guy at a party, it's a very different element
Perspective.
than like
Right.
when you bring in a relationship and then I'm like, oh, now how am I introducing him? Um, just not that I'm uncomfortable because
Sure.
I'm so authentic with who I am. But it is cute to like hear how the straight community receives gay relationships, that it still is something special to them. And it's like they're not meaning to make you into um they're not trying to fetishize you as a couple, but
Sure.
I
Sure.
think they want to like show support, and it's just cute to see how straight people navigate that, in my
It
opinion.
is. It is. But I mean, from what I've learned, if I may offer some advice or to people listening and watching, just be yourself,
Hmm.
and those who are meant to support and love you will follow suit and fall in line. And it doesn't matter whether or not you're gay or lesbian or queer or trans. Just be yourself and be a loving person, and not to get mushy. I'm getting all emotional now. As my best friend says, the wind blows and I get emotional, which is kind of true. But that's part of my healing journey too, is just to be more authentic and more loving. And those who will support you in your community will come forward, and you won't even have to try in a few months. So
Yeah, well, and like my wall of vulnerability has now, once I made this commitment, I'm like, okay, I'm letting my heart open again. And I mean,
yes,
Joseph, you saw me in my really like erotically charged, steamy phase, which I
but there's
still
power in that too,
have.
Andrew. there's
Yeah.
there's power in that too. I mean, if you have it and you feel comfortable, then especially with our community, that's our power. But that's
Mhm.
also what I write in my books, is taking the power back within being a queer man or being a queer person under the spectrum, is having that power to be sexually charged, and
Mhm.
come out of the darkness, as we talked about last time. You had just featured on your stories, through TikTok and such, which I'm grateful for. So thank you for doing that. But we need to come out of the darkness, right? We have to stop being labeled as monsters, as pop culture has, you know, fortunately or unfortunately labeled us as so, and
Mhm.
take that power back.
Mhm.
So yes, I have known you well over a year, which is crazy. And we're only getting to our second podcast. I hope there's many more in the future, Andrew. But um, there's no shame in that. And
Mhm.
you did not show any of that with that phase that you had gone through. That's powerful.
Well, and I realized like you being empowered sexually is something like I'm bringing into this relationship,
Yep.
knowing who I am, knowing how to communicate,
Sure.
um, what I'm turned on by or interested in. Like all of this is healthy
Yeah.
navigation in a relationship. But also like I love now opening myself up to be vulnerable because, I'm learning from my boyfriend about letting the walls go down with having to have all the boxes checked off and everything needing to be scheduled. And like, I'm such a Virgo planned person that
I'm
he's
an
a little
Aries.
more
Yep.
laissez-faire, and I need that in my life.
I
So,
get it. And that's
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's part of my, being transparent with you and the audience. My healing, with therapy and also becoming more of my more authentic self every single day. That's a journey that's not linear. You know what I mean? And trying
Mhm.
to, as an Aries, trying to let things just fall into place, not planning every second with my partner or with my friends, or my new gay friends. And as much as I want to see them, sometimes it's more rewarding that I've witnessed in the past, and I'm re-entering this phase of trying to let things go and just see where things fall into place, maybe so much better than you had ever imagined. So I would recommend that too, but just take this relationship just one day, 1 month at a time, and just enjoy the newness of new love. So
Yeah, and not to have um expectations of where like something I'm learning is just being an everyday living every day in the relationship, but I've been doing
Yeah,
this for a while, meditating in my own life and,
sure.
not worrying about a month from now or 2 months from now. And
Just
I
enjoy it.
think, yeah, but I did want to ask you because I'm so curious before we jump into vampires and witches and all the
Yes, I can't wait.
Halloweeny things, even though there's a lot of romance in horror, I
A
always
lot of
say
romance and
horror
vampires
and
too.
romance
Oh
and
yeah.
eroticism, they're all together. But um, what is your advice for especially gay men, I'll say,
Mhm.
or queer men in general? Like you said about you being more emotionally available or open.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Something I'm noticing is like how empowering now I'm finding it to be with queer men, like that I've kind of countered that idea I had even 3 years ago
Mhm.
that queer men are always in competition with each other. Like I do feel, and you can still see some men doing it, and I think
Sure.
people do it in general, but
Right.
like you had talked about this before when you came on in the summer in more
Mhm.
conversation that everyone can listen to. But
Sure.
what's your advice for not only friends, but like letting go of that need to compete or need to be living the gay male lifestyle that someone else is living, right? And there
Yeah,
is a certain pressure to, be the biggest, best thing in the gay male scene
sure.
since it's already a small pool of people that you're all trying to maybe make headway or make a networking connection.
Yeah. I have a lot to say on that, which could be a completely different episode or a special bonus
Yeah.
feature for the
Maybe we'll do
website.
it in the winter, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but as we're all hibernating, right? And
Mhm.
trying to not put on those holiday pounds. But I digress because I will say this, when I started dating Matt back when we were 22, there was a lot of pressure in the clubs because we weren't club heads or club kids. We liked going out literally, maybe making out in the corner, getting some drinks that we couldn't really afford, at the local, well, and really to just hear music and dance and to have that outlet of being ourselves. But there was a lot of biases that were floating around within the club itself because I had been single up to that point, and I had only been really freshly out. And that's just my story. Everybody's coming out and journey into themselves is different, Andrew. Oop. But I will say this. Um, you know, I had to battle that um, by feeling I had to be more catty, right? Back then. Or, everyone's like, well, you have a boyfriend now and you're married, you're not coming out. And I was like, can you relax and be happy for my relationship? Just because you may be, and this is maybe it was coming from a place of being more judgmental back over 10, 15 years ago. Not so much now. This is just in hindsight, I felt because of the community being so catty and being so clicky, I had to, take my claws out and react, to that, to counteract that negativity that I felt I was receiving. That's in my relationship. Now being with my partner, my common law, literally my common law husband, going on 18 years, now I try to be as cool as a cucumber as far as if people do have something to say, which is very few and far between all these years later. But as far as friendships are concerned, I never felt in competition with my best guy friend, his now fiance that has become family. And we aren't swinging our what's around, and we aren't putting our. I mean, yes, I do have my witty banter with my best friend. You know what I mean? That's because we're like brothers and we're like family. But I've never felt in competition with his fiance or my partner with our other friends. It just kind of this was so necessary for us, and we've had these conversations, and we continue to have these conversations
Mhm.
on why having gay friends is so important. Us being the older gay men versus the younger gay men. Again, as I had said before, you bring different blood, new perspectives into the relationships, which you also carry into your romantic relationships. And that's how I interact different with my partner. I know that my best friend, he may, in a positive light, interact differently with his fiance, and then we share our perspectives and our thoughts and our gratefulness for the relationships when we're together. And we can just watch TV and go to the movies and go on vacation together, which we had done, which had never which had never happened in the past, at least for me, and for the four of us. So it really is case by case scenario, in my opinion, Andrew, but I don't feel that I'm in competition. And when it's right, in my opinion, what I've experienced over a year, if you find the right gay friend group, you shouldn't be in competition with each other. You can have fun. You have to set the boundaries, if you, or not, but it should just be commonplace to just be genuinely in love with each other and enjoy each other's time. So, yeah.
Well, and also, remember, you're going to come to Fire Island in the summer. I'm getting a group together to
I
come to
know you
Fire
are.
Island. So you need to bring your common law husband.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And now all I have is this vision of like swinging your wands around. There we go. I'll make a witchy metaphor.
There we go. Very spooky, Andrew.
Well, that's a good transition into American Horror
Perfect
Story
transition.
Coven,
Yeah.
which actually has an absence of men, which I really find refreshing in Coven.
Yeah.
Like, let's start first. I'm
Oh
so
boy.
glad you had me rewatch this because I forgot how amazing this season is, and it's probably still the best American Horror Story one, in my opinion, that I was drawn to.
Mhm.
Like so much so that I might even like start to rewatch it with guest co-hosts, like you being the first one, like doing every episode in the winter, but we'll see. Um,
I would be happy to rewatch that. It's very snackable, and that's my favorite. And also set in New Orleans. Hello, I have the Coven House behind me right now.
yeah. So what is the house? Like, what's the history behind where they shot American Horror Story Coven?
So it's in the Garden District. It's a private residence, and they did film all the outside shots at the house. But the inside is nothing like the inside in real life. It was done on a soundstage. But this is a very popular location, in the Garden District of New Orleans, which I was at most recently with my friends. And my best friend's now fiance is a horror fan, and he was really cute too. We all were dressed up. We went after a night out at Oz, and he took pictures. And I think he called his mom that he was at the Coven House, this really is a mecca for horror fans, is what I'm trying to say. And people literally dress up as witches, both male and female. I mean, probably predominantly gay men, myself included, to reenact some scenes in front of the house itself. But it is a gated, private house, but it's gorgeous, and you can really feel the essence of old New Orleans when you come visit, this location itself.
I am here with the co-owner of one of my favorite stores here in Port Jefferson Village, New York. It is called The Soapbox. So Janine said, Andrew, I have these 4 products you need to get your hands on. It's called 4 for Fall. So she's going to go over these 4 products. I know first you have a soap for me. What is the soap?
I have the soap for you. It is called Apple Cider Shea Butter Soap. It's by a company called Greenwich Bay. And this is a great soap because you can use it for your hands or your body. And it has a delicious apple cider scent. And I think you're actually already familiar with it.
Yes, it is in my shower. I still have it. It lasts a very long time.
Great lather.
The lather's wonderful. It's just so luxurious. And I love the scent into November.
Yes.
This apple cider it evokes so many cozy feelings. After the soap, we have something that you can add on to in the shower. So what is this?
This is a wonderful, wonderful exfoliating shower scrub. It is by a company called Primal Almonds, and it's a sugar whip shower scrub. And the scent is pumpkin spice. It's a moisturizing sugar scrub. So it's tiny little sugar granules. And it's something that you would use after you shower twice a week, because you don't want to strip your skin of your natural oils and your moisture. But it's wonderful. It just really exfoliates all that dead skin and leaves your skin very smooth and soft from all the sugar.
So after I use the exfoliant, right now we need to moisturize. So I know you have a really nice fall body lotion for us.
Absolutely. This is just such a delicious scent. This is one of my favorites for fall. The scent is Orchard Breeze, and it's by a company called Michelle Design Works. This is another product that you can use hand and body. It's great. You can place it on your vanity, just a couple of pumps for your hands, or use it on your entire body. But it's shea butter based, so it's extremely moisturizing. It's just wonderful, and the scent is just lovely.
We need something more deep for our face. Everyone
Yes.
wants face masks, and I know that you absolutely love this company and this brand.
This is one of my favorite masks by one of my favorite companies that we carry and we support. The company is called Farmhouse Fresh, and they're right out of Texas. The mask is called Splendid Dirt, and it's a nutrient-rich mud mask. It consists of pumpkin puree, and the benefits of this mask, it's a pore minimizer, a radiance booster, and a skin degunker. So it's an all-around great mask. If you really want a boost of radiance, it brightens your skin and it really cleanses your pores.
If they live on Long Island or near Long Island, what is your address for them to come into the store?
We're located at 18 Chandler Square in Port Jefferson, New York, right in the village. And if you can't make it, you have to come in because we just have so much fun stuff in here, so many wonderful products. But if you can't make it in, please give us a call. We're more than happy to ship any of these wonderful products to you. Call us at 631-509-1424. You could always reach us on Instagram at the Soapbox NY, or you could always check us out on our website, Soapbox NY. And
Yeah, there's
I
so
think
many
that's
ways to
about it.
access your
So many
products.
ways to reach us.
And Janine is more than happy, and Mariana, the
Oh,
other
it's
co-owner,
my mom, actually.
yes,
Yes, my
are
mother.
so willing to take your orders
Yes.
via phone, via Instagram, and I can't wait for everyone else to enjoy these luxurious products. Imagine that you're riding the Turner Classic Movie Great Movie Ride in Hollywood Studios. It's in the 1990s. As you're journeying through the Great Movie Ride, you pass the Wizard of Oz, where all of a sudden you see the Wicked Witch of the West ascend into Munchkinland in a cloud of smoke and flames. Well, that's the memory I have with the Great Movie Ride in classic cinema when I was at Disney in the 1990s as a young boy. And ever since that, I was hooked on classic cinema. Well, my friend Christian Garcia, friend of the Ivory Tower Boiler Room, has a podcast that you all are going to love. It's called That Old Gay Classic Cinema, and he looks at queer themes in classic cinema like Vertigo, The Wizard of Oz, Sleeping Beauty, Mary Poppins, 101 Dalmatians, Hello Dolly. The list can go on and on and on. So follow him on Instagram at That Old Gay Classic Cinema. You can listen to his podcast on Apple and Spotify. And he also is on the premiere episode of our Queer as Folk podcast, where I'm rewatching every episode of Queer as Folk from 2000. And the episodes come out bi-weekly. So make sure you listen to his episode with me. And he's launching a rewatch show of Smash, where they're putting on a Marilyn Monroe musical. So he's going to be joined by co-hosts, a lot who are in the Broadway and theater industry, and I'm going to be on his first episode. So without further ado, get listening to That Old Gay Classic Cinema. Enjoy. So just because I've never been to New Orleans, to set the scene,
We
Joseph,
got to change that, Andrew.
I know. Well, I'm getting you to Fire Island, and I'll go to New Orleans. That would be
Great,
amazing.
accepted.
I am going to be in Salem in March for an event, but
Nice.
I know I love Salem. So I'm just curious, how far of a walk is it from the French Quarter to the Garden District?
Oh, honey, you don't want to walk. You have to
Okay,
take,
so it's not like
yeah.
it's that close.
So you can, but I would not recommend going through the sketchier neighborhoods to get there. I would take the streetcar, the St. Charles line, and it's only, you can pay like $3 or something like that for a Jazzy Pass on your mobile device. They scan your ticket for one ride one way, and you can take the St. Charles line all the way to the Garden District and walk maybe 25 minutes to go see this location where you get dropped off.
What
Yeah.
is it, a tram car? Kind of like
It is.
Alexandria, Virginia?
It's a streetcar. Yep.
It's a
It is
streetcar.
the oldest running line, or one of them that are in New Orleans.
I love streetcars.
But you could,
Yeah.
because it's so warm down there and so balmy, you could, they have the windows open and you can look at all the old, mansions as you pass and just people watch. And it's a really lovely experience just being on the streetcar and riding it around. and
Yeah.
seeing something that you wouldn't see normally on a tour, just on the street walking by yourself.
So is the Garden District where Anne Rice's house is?
Sure is.
Or was? Yeah,
It's
yeah.
well, it's still there. It is. They had renovated it recently. That's why we couldn't find it really last time or the time before. Probably because of her shows that had come out, or
Mm.
now it's a private residence that used to have her plaque on there of when she used to live there with her family and Christopher Rice and so on. Yeah.
Does Christopher Rice still live in Louisiana?
No, he
Mm.
visits, but he's currently in California, and I have such a little boy crush on him all these years later. You have no idea.
He's very sweet. I've messaged him on Instagram, but
He's sweet and he's responsive to his fans, and he's also gorgeous. I mean, in my opinion. So definitely fangirling over Christopher Rice. Yeah,
okay.
always.
Christopher Rice, come on the podcast. Okay. No, if I get him on the podcast, you can jump on, Joseph.
Yes, thank you.
So, um, what I'm curious about then is like what makes I think Coven so special
Mhm.
is the scenery. Like I think that the New Orleans setting, the history of voodoo, the history of slavery, like the way race relations are working. There's so much happening in the
There is.
series
Yeah,
that I find that it's just such a stunning, like the premise. And like they turn to the Salem witch trials at the beginning in the first episode, which is called Bitchcraft. And I love that title. What did you think when you first, like, what is it about this season of American Horror Story that draws you in?
I will tell you this: it holds a special place in my heart. Of course, New Orleans does, and I can talk about that also for hours upon hours. My first trip to New Orleans with my best girlfriend, Melinda, who's my manager, my muse. She's in my books. We traveled, together to New Orleans specifically. I watched the first episode before going to bed on my last night in New Orleans in 2014. So having seen the sights and not having watched the show, but then going back to the show and pointing out where I had been during my first trip, which was very special,
Mm.
was groundbreaking. It was, I mean, it really was. This may sound ridiculous, but not to me, like life changing. And feeling the essence of old New Orleans and the horse and carriage, and diving right into the folklore, not only of witchcraft, but also of voodoo. That's very, you know, um, prevalent in not only the French Quarter, but the state of Louisiana itself. You can walk down the street. We had stayed at, this is 2021. We went for Christmas really quickly, and we had stayed at the um, I can't think of it. I just had it in my head. But we had stayed at the Lamothe House, and it's this cute, little kind of like B&B, run by the LGBT community, by the way. And there are voodoo symbols on the granite and on the windows and the shutters. And when you walk down, when you have that in your mind, you then start seeing what you had formerly, not seen before, and it comes to light. And it's not scary. It's all blessings and, positive energy and positive stuff. So that was my first experience watching Coven. I was just blown away because I was in New Orleans, watching New Orleans, just from a different perspective. And it completely floored me. Yeah.
Well, and also the stellar cast. I mean, like behind me, I have the cover, the poster up, but behind me is the incredible Jessica Lange. And Sarah Paulson isn't in, maybe she is, one of the bodies in this
Right.
poster, but Angela Bassett is incredible. Um,
It was Laveau. Yep.
yes. Kathy Bates as Madame,
La
what is it?
Laurie.
Yeah. Like
So much history there, Andrew. There's so much horror and so much sadness around those characters too.
there
Even
is.
though the show is a work of fiction, I mean, they wove the New Orleans culture very intricately and very uh, in a classy sense for that show from
Yeah.
start to finish. In my opinion, absolutely,
Well,
yeah.
and even though I do like other witch TV shows and films, I feel like none of them have really um been effective at addressing race relations and like the oppressive elements of America's history, but
Yeah,
also the bewitching aspect, right? Like Bewitched is all white, witches. Sabrina the Teenage Witch doesn't do anything with
no,
race.
no.
Um, even a movie, oh, what is it? Well, Hocus Pocus, no, it's more the Salem witch trials,
Mhm.
but not like Tituba. It's the white, um, more like
That's
taking
what's
on this image of white witches.
that's what's marketable. But Coven and Ryan Murphy and his team and the entire cast turn that on its head. And especially, in my opinion, as cis white males, and a lot of us are drawn to that in the queer community, really need to be watching shows like that, and also movies like we talked about last time, Antebellum. Being uncomfortable by watching these shows, and it was set under the guise of a an American horror story, but they wove several horror stories into one season with
Well,
Coven.
and like in the Garden District, I'm assuming so many of those mansions are built by enslaved people.
Correct.
Yeah. So like how is that handled when you do tours, or do you feel like because New Orleans is such a richly cultural place with
Mhm.
the jazz, the Mardi Gras, I know for funerals, like the Black community has all these rituals, and it's
They
like this
do.
beautiful celebration of life after
It is a
death.
celebration. It is, yeah. And they second,
Yes.
which I've only seen weddings, and I was really excited that my special New Orleans crew did experience a second line wedding while we were coming actually back from the Garden District to go out back to Frenchman Street, our second full day together. But I will tell you this,
Well, yeah, and I was gonna say, I guess my question is,
yeah,
like, how much is the people of like those who, I mean, I'll say mostly the Black community and those who are white in New Orleans, how much is it like a intersected culture?
very much so. But you have to let me start up by saying this. No tour, because you had mentioned tours, um, is the same twice. I would recommend going on different tours hosted by different communities. There's the Voodoo tour that's hosted by the African American, culture. There's the cocktail tour that is predominantly hosted by middle-aged white women, and I've befriended a lot of those people that have hosted those tours and have, been those docents that I wove into my works by getting those different perspectives, right? As a cis white male, it's my job to weave those stories into my works to share for the next generation or the next reader or fan, right? But I did go, and I'm not going to specifically say which location. I went to a very popular plantation, not once, but twice. And the first time I was just, again, I was floored, right? I was blinded by the beauty of the antebellum location and the columns, and the docents were dressed up as in these antebellum dresses, and they had fans, and they really put on a show. But that's not reality, right? That's whitewashing and erasing history. And I have to call this out. So we went a second time. We had rented a car because there was this entire row, about an hour or so outside of New Orleans itself, and all the famous plantations that were in all the movies, 12 Years a Slave and Skeleton Key, are literally on the same block. I mean, it's a very long block because of these large, pieces of land and property. But we had purchased tickets on our fancy dress up day. We visited Laura Plantation, which I recommend, is more sharing the truth behind history, right? It's a Creole plantation, very colorful, very dark history. And most of these plantations have them. But we went to this other location, which I'm not going to, you know, I will speak ill of, but I'm not going to say where it is, because I want everybody who's watching and will visit New Orleans to go there on their own and rediscover this, location. But my best girlfriend and I were having cocktails, and we had purchased tickets for the entire, tour, the entire day. And we had heard a tour group of white docents to white people speaking about how lovely the enslaved, lives were on the plantation. completely whitewashing everything, completely lying to their faces. And my friend and I were quite literally cringing at each other and thinking, this is really strange. But the stranger part, Andrew, is there's actually a foundation that allows this to happen. And they're ancestors of the former plantation owners. And that's where we get the whitewashing from. So there's a lot going on that's untruthful down, especially at these plantations in Louisiana. And we need to read, the true histories, experience it for ourselves, and
Yeah.
take what these tour guides say with a grain of salt. It's all for entertainment, purposes, but we really need to find the facts, get the history books out, or even authors by the ancestors of those who were enslaved, and read their perspectives, because
Exactly.
otherwise then it's one-sided, and that doesn't do anybody good.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like what you're saying is um that in a way what's so important is like a show such as fictional American Horror Story
Yeah,
Coven also offers a lot of historical reality mixed with fantasy
it does.
that it really begs you. Ryan Murphy wants you to really investigate primary sources like slave narratives or even
Mhm.
different Gothic novels.
Yeah,
And like, I think it's why it's so important to find a mixture of horror authors, right? Like, everyone
correct.
has a different perspective. And, um, like I was in the library recently and I need to get my hands on it. Um, but the creator of Get Out, oh gosh,
Mhm.
why am I losing his name? Um,
Can't think,
it'll
but
come
yes,
to me.
I know the film very well.
Yeah, yeah. But he just came out with um here, wait, I'll find it real quick as I'm talking. But he just came out with this really cool uh black author anthology of horror.
Mhm.
So Jordan Peele. I didn't
Yes,
even look
yes.
it up, but it came into my mind. It's called, just for everyone out there, it's called Out There Screaming,
Mhm.
an anthology of new black horror. So I need to get my hands on it. Um, but what I wanted to ask you with Coven is, what is it about what the witches go through? Like, whether it be like the voodoo line of Angela Bassett's character, like whether it be more of the Jessica Lange, her narcissistic ego,
Yeah,
like driven by beauty. Like her and actually Kathy Bates's character have very similar. Their similarities is around beauty and their image
there
and
is. Yeah.
exploiting people around them. Um, like I kind of am just questioning the more I'm rewatching every episode that I
Mhm.
haven't seen since it came out, is how closely aligned to evil is Jessica Lange's character and Kathy Bates? Like, are they both oppressing the people around them? And like, what's the scale of murder? Even if you think someone deserves it, is that still excusable? You
Well,
know?
here's the difference between Fiona Good and Lala Ree, right? Yes, they're very similar in the sense of they, wanting their vanity, and will stomp or murder anybody that gets in their way, whether it be in the past or in the present of when the show takes place. But in my opinion, Fiona Good is inherently evil because she literally went to Papa Legba to sell her soul
Mhm.
and to become this immortal character that would still have cancer, and but she just wouldn't die, right? She would literally try to kill the next Supreme, and for however many generations she could keep that up without getting caught, even by wiping out her daughter, who winds up being, spoiler alert, the next Supreme. But somebody like Lala Ree, right, didn't have a choice. She became immortal because of Marie Laveau.
Mhm.
So I think she's less evil. She was just had a really crappy, deck dealt to her when she was younger in the 1800s, and she just didn't know any better. So I think she's less evil, in my opinion, than Fiona Good. Fiona Good couldn't care less. She wants her vanity. She wants her coven the way she wants her coven, and she wants all the power in the world because she's the current supreme, or was.
Yeah.
So that's my final answer. And I've actually never thought about it like that till my organic answer just came out. So thank you for questioning
No, well, that's what we're here
that
for,
level of
is
evil.
to
I
have
know.
enlightened moments together.
Yeah.
But I also was curious, the sense of female empowerment. I think this is what I'm so drawn to in this,
Hmm.
um, the narrative of Coven, is like how different each of the women are, the young women, like even Sarah Paulson as Cordelia, which is like one of my favorite characters that she's
Hmm.
played.
Sure.
Um, is how each of them have such different personalities, different motives. Um, Emma Roberts' character was a movie star, which is very interesting because that's her character now in Delicate, which is actually
Hmm.
based off of a novel, but which Coven isn't. Not to my knowledge. I don't think Coven is based off
I
of
don't think it is
any
either. No.
source. Okay. And I have feelings about Delicate right now, but I'll get into that later. um, just that it's not as riveting at all, in my opinion, as
Sure.
Coven is.
Sure.
Have you seen Delicate?
Not yet.
Mm.
Nope. I'm holding off for a while.
Yeah, it's putting me to sleep. Uh,
That's
but I know. But I am excited to see American Horror Stories since Lisa Rinna makes an appearance, and
yes. Yes.
yeah, I think she's in the tapeworm episode. So we'll see how that is. I think that might be better because it's like much more packed
Much more snackable.
together.
Yeah. Yeah. For the
Yeah,
Halloween.
yeah, yeah. I love it. Snackable. I like how you make that's your hard-hitting TV that you can
Yeah.
digest.
Exactly.
Okay. But the sense of female empowerment, like why do you think it is so important that women are the center of the witch narrative rather than bringing in men as witches? Like, but that's like a tradition though, right? There's wizards who are male, but there aren't really witches who are men.
Or warlocks, but men
Yeah.
can be witches too. But specifically, yes, they were also, when Fiona eventually does become, the supreme. I mean, sorry, when Cordelia becomes supreme at the end, and they're talking about, coming out of the shadows, right? They're really talking, at least in my opinion, to the queer community, and also gay men, because we're inherently, at least most of us coming out, were drawn to women when we were kids, or coming out as young adults. So they've always been our protectors, right? At least,
Mhm.
again, in my opinion, my circle. And that was an interesting, kind of call out, and kind of a little wink to the queer community and gay men especially.
Are you afraid of the dark? Sorry, I had to, everyone. It's Dr. Andrew Rimby. Happy spooky season and gothic and horror. Just all the vibes. I am so excited to talk about Broadview Press, who you might know helps sponsor our podcast. They're an independent publisher in the humanities since 1985. Did you know they have so many horror novels that you need to get your hands on? They have Frankenstein, of course, by Mary Shelley. They have Dracula by Bram Stoker, one of my favorites. They have The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson, Edgar Allan Poe's Poetry and Tales. Oh, they just have so many gothic novels that you all need to soak your teeth into, bob your teeth into. Some kind of Halloween metaphor is appropriate there. They also have academic books like Dr. Jeffrey Andrew Weinstock's The Mad Scientist's Guide to Composition. So if you're a writing professor out there, you need to get your hands on that. And they also have a gift package called Mystery Horror Sensation, which, if you don't know what to choose, just choose the Mystery Horror Sensation gift package. Just a reminder, you get 20% off on broadviewpress.com, link in our show notes. Just use the code Ivory Tower, all lowercase. Ivory Tower, 20% off all your books on broadviewpress.com, all of them. I can't wait for you all to hear our next Broadview Press guest. It's coming in November. And definitely, when you buy one of their horror or gothic novels or books, just make sure you tag us on Instagram at Ivory Tower Boiler Room, and tag them too at Broadview Press. I know they'll love to share it. Okay, everyone. Be careful if you're reading in the dark. I don't want you to get too scared. Turn a light on. Bye, everyone. Hi, did I mention that it's spooky season? This is Dr. Andrew Rimby, and guess what? I have so many Halloween and fall designs and crafts in my apartment. And guess what? There is a person who's made me so many Halloween horror fall themed items, and her name is Mandy Bengal. She owns Mandy Made It, a craft crochet company. So Mandy talked to me and said, Andrew, I want everyone out there to know that if they mention ITBR and that they heard my ad, that I will give them a free ITBR t-shirt. So make sure you mention ITBR and order from Mandy crocheted pumpkins that she actually is using cinnamon sticks as the stem, which is a brilliant idea. How cozy. And also filling the pumpkins with potpourri. I already want to wrap myself in a blanket. She has Halloween keychains, other Halloween crochet designs. So how can you reach out to her? Go to her Facebook or Instagram at Mandy Made It. Reach out to her. She will ship items out to you. If you live in the South New Jersey, Philly area, she'll arrange to have you either pick it up or deliver it to you. So Mandy just makes such beautiful crocheted items. And I'm so happy that she supports the podcast. I've known Mandy since I was a child. We were in theater camp together. That's how I met Mary. So the three of us have known each other a long time. Okay, head over to Mandy Made It for your handmade crocheted items for this Halloween and fall.
But she also said, you know, you're safer, you know, in numbers, and you're safer not in the shadows. That means it's okay to come out, right? So the woman of the coven literally are changing the entire, you know, history of that coven in particular in New Orleans, that had a history of leaving Salem back in the 1690s, right? So I really think it's about women just being protectors and women being the givers of life, and that make the world run better. And that's what that season meant to me. You know, why, yes, there were different personalities and personas and different levels of powers, but the power came within, and eventually they all protected each other, which is also, you know, a woman can also protect gay men and the queer community. So it kind of all came home for me. This, I just watched it for the 10th time again with my boyfriend, with my partner. You know, we watch it, you know, right after summertime, kind of the kickoff to the fall season. And I've watched it many times, and you pick up a lot of different things with each watch as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's very different when an apocalypse, which I love when um the Coven cast makes their reappearance in
Oh, that was the
Apocalypse.
best part of the season.
It was. But isn't it interesting though when a warlock is at the center in Apocalypse? Like I do find like when men get magic qualities, it tends to be more self-centered, or like they have to be the only one who has power. Even though, right, Fiona is kind of veering on that edge of, like I said, narcissism and
Yeah, she is.
egotism. But like
Yeah.
I find that men, even when they're vampires, like this is another good transition, but you just had me rethink when I saw True Blood. In True Blood, they have a similar and I think True Blood was right around was during this time when Coven came out, right? Was
It
True Blood?
was True Blood had just ended and Coven had just gotten released.
Yeah, because I was addicted to True Blood, and
I
I
rewatch
found
that too, by the way, every
yeah,
summer. That's my summer show. My
yeah, I
like
need to start rewatching it. But I had found there was a whole call for vampire rights, and it's kind of exactly like what happens with the Coven narrative of like we have to come from out of the shadows and have the society and public accept us. So you're right,
Mhm.
it is like a coming out of the closet
It
narrative.
is. I mean, even in the introduction, you know, in the credits of True Blood, they pan across a sign, no fangs allowed, or God hates fangs.
Mhm.
I mean, that's blatantly obvious that there's definitely a queer, you know, queer subtext to the show itself. And there
Well, and the
certainly was.
show, and it has so many like queer same-sex moments in True Blood
Oh yeah, and very
between the
well
male
done.
vampires.
Very well done. Mhm.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think. So, like, as we transition from this to Interview with the Vampire,
Oh my
like,
gosh.
how do you find the queer elements in Coven? Like, is there anything you like between the women? Is there? Do you think queerness is? I mean, Ryan Murphy is openly gay and you know has a lot of just queer imagery. But is
Yeah.
there like anything that you're drawn to that you would describe as queer in Coven?
Something actually negative where uh Cordelia is blinded again and they have to go look for one of the witches that, was put away by one of the upcoming, other witches in the coven. And um I'm drawing a blank, but this particular younger witch was poking fun at lesbianism towards Cordelia. And that's the only thing that I really recognized that was really queer focused or queer centric in that one scene where she called her out because of her actions because she was blind and she went to go maybe touch her chest or something inadvertently. And the younger witch made fun of her for that. She's like, "Oh, are you turning into a lesbian now? Or you like girls now?" And that was a little bit had a negative connotation in the scene because she was a bitchy character towards Cordelia. But other than that, I didn't really get a sense of even, well, maybe some
I
bisexuality.
mean, we do get Leslie Jordan, the late great Leslie
True,
Jordan, as a
true. He
witch.
was
Well, he is a
amazing
male witch.
as
Yeah,
Quentin.
yeah.
Yeah, he was good, but that was just kind of, I think, tongue in cheek for the comedic relief of that scene or for the season itself. He was only,
Yeah.
in a few of those scenes throughout the season.
Yeah. I
But
mean, I feel
even,
like this,
oh, go ahead.
yeah. I do feel like the Stevie Nicks and Misty Day. I feel like Misty has a real queer fluidness about her.
Really, see, I didn't get that sense. I got the sense that she was a cis, heterosexual woman that just needed like a mother figure. And Stevie Nicks was more of like the mother goddess
Yeah.
than having a crush on her. So that's
Well,
interesting.
no, no, I don't think
For
they
me,
have a
that's different.
crush. I think I just think that Misty is just like a really
Just in
fluid
general.
into she's just into absorbing the earth. Like she's a very organic, um, almost counterculture hippie.
Right.
Like um that
Okay.
she's non-judgmental. That's probably
Right.
what I would say.
Right. But
Where
also there's that bisexuality or that lesbianism between Zoe and Kyle, and I'm drawing a blank on the other, which is named, where they were sharing Kyle for a while until Zoe said that she loved Kyle and vice versa. And then Kyle became the butler. So there were
oh, okay.
scenes where they were sharing Kyle for a while,
Yes,
who
yes,
is
yes, yes,
who
yes.
is the Frankenstein character in Coven as well. So there's a lot of
Mm.
different folklores, of the horror genre, even queer, horror that were woven into Coven that I loved at the same time.
Yeah. And I think the whole cast is just so well suited for their roles. Like
Very well
that's
suited.
where I feel American Horror Story, the first two seasons, they had found the actors were in their prime. Not
Sure.
in their prime, but the actors were so well picked. And Patty LaPone guest stars. I forgot about that in Coven. It's like,
As the Catholic neighbor. Yep.
yeah, that's a great storyline. But even that there's, a witch who has Down syndrome and she has her special powers, and Gabri Sidibe is, one of the witches. Like I just felt like
Yeah.
it's a really empowering all different marginalized communities.
Yeah.
Um, that I've missed in American Horror Story. I feel like, yeah, the show, um, I think the first few seasons really hit its mark, and then it could just be the genre of trying to impress the audience, and the audience is sometimes it's
I
okay
think
to
he's
put a
trying to
bookmark.
impress the audience. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
trying to impress the audience. My opinion, maybe cut it soon, maybe stick to the seasonal, like American Horror Stories, where they're each individual horror stories, that are more snackable that you can binge for a season and just put it to rest. Or create more seasons that are similar to Coven, but just different folklores, maybe go back to Roanoke, make that more inclusive or something like that. Or,
Yeah. Well, I think they need an ensemble cast because, like, this is my um annoyance with. Well, first of all, I don't want to like pass judgment on Danielle Valentine's Delicate Condition, which the show is
right,
based off of, because I'm starting to read that, and I think it's
right,
like such a psychologically um well done horror novel. It's not
sure.
really horror; it's like psychological thriller, but what I think isn't working is it's only really Emma Roberts' character's psyche.
Mhm.
And it works good for a novel. It does not work for a TV show
For the
because
screen,
we don't have an ensemble cast working together. That's where Coven,
sure.
it's like everyone had they were literally they're putting on a play in front of your
They
eyes.
were,
And
yeah,
you need it to
absolutely.
be like a play, you
Mhm.
know? So
Yeah,
maybe they should maybe they should bring Coven to Broadway.
I would be the first one to purchase its ticket. I'll tell you that much. We have to go review it for the podcast.
Yes, there you go. Okay. So any other thought until we head, into Interview with the Vampire?
No, I am ready.
Oh,
I am so excited to talk about that show. I can't
okay.
even describe it.
So let me ask you, what is the similarities you find with Coven and Interview with the Vampire? There we go.
Oh, that was a good transition. Both beautiful men, by the way, played, by very talented actors. Um, I would say the aspect of immortality, of course, is very, uh, dominant in both seasons. Um, and
Well,
Lestat,
wait, and to follow up on that, do you think that there's a difference between the male vampiric immortality based around their power, and or is it like Coven where
yeah,
it's more about beauty and
it is
staying
more
young?
about power because Lestat is such a force to be reckoned with, and he is a literal sociopath. His ego is so fragile. He has to, well, again, spoiler alert, eventually, try to just completely mutilate Louis by proving a point. His ego is so fragile, Andrew, that he has to beat him to a pulp
Mhm.
to teach him a lesson or to kill him, to release him from, this otherworldly coil.
Yeah, and this is his
So
lover.
exactly. So I would say it's a lot more about power than beauty in Interview with the Vampire, hands down.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Well, and do you think it's because of our society's judgments around beauty standards, like that the currency for men isn't necessarily, I would say, like, a handsome man does have certain power, but do you
Of
think
course he
that a
does.
woman's power still, like, the beauty of a woman is seen in a different light than the beauty of a man? Like, it's more about, like, an Interview with the Vampire, like you're saying, it's about how much he can conquer, or, you know, the wealth that he amasses. And we don't really see like I mean, we do see the power of like Angela Bassett's character, or
Sure.
even her and Fiona Good going at it, and that's a power struggle. That's not about their beauty.
There's
Um,
more history there too. You know what I mean? They've worked for their power.
yeah. Well,
Lestat
and how old? How,
comes from
yeah,
nothing.
and how old are these vampires? Just to remind everyone, in
So
Interview with the
they're,
Vampire.
you know, I think they're in their 30s, or they're supposed to be in their 30s. And they're very young. They're very young men when they're turned. Both had, Lestat had a harder time growing up, and he came from nothing, and Louis came from wealth, but he
Mhm.
was a man of color, you know. And the portrayal of the current Interview with the Vampire season, and actually I can't wait for the second one. I believe they're going to Paris or to France in the next season, which is coming out sooner than later, which I
Yes.
can't
Yeah.
wait
Yeah.
for. But I will tell you this, even the struggle between white and black and good versus evil within the relationship of Louis versus Lestat. Lestat comes in and he buys Louis's family's um, home and plantation. So he re-enslaves Louis, as a Creole black man, And he immediately has a power trip and an ego. He's very egotistical off the bat, trying to control a man of color.
Yeah.
You don't really get a lot of that in Coven, trying to blend or kind of, see the parallels. There's not a lot of that in Coven. There's a lot more of that in Interview with the Vampire.
Yeah. Well, and also isn't, I would say, the main difference between just the um legend and horror of a witch compared to a vampire is vampires literally have to um feed on each other. Like they have to feed on the source of their child. Like to make
Yeah,
a child, they have to
yeah.
feed on them. Like a witch isn't actually
No,
like physically, a witch
correct.
has the powers already.
You're
Uh
born a witch. You
they
can
were
work
born.
your powers. You can, you know what I mean? A
You
vampire,
can't turn a witch, you can't make a witch.
no, but vampirism is like a virus.
Mhm.
You know, it's a blessing and a curse. You can't go
Yeah.
out during the day and you can't do this and you have to feed on blood. I mean, there's so many rules, so many more rules when it comes to vampirism.
Yeah.
And Anne Rice originally did such an amazing job working out the new rules of what that would actually look like in real society. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In
Well, and
reality.
witches and vampires never get along with each other when they're in the same place,
Right.
usually.
Right.
I
So
think, right? Do we see that in No. Is there a vampire? I don't think so.
not vampires, no. I mean, there's
Mhm.
there's this cult, of wannabe witches, but there's nothing, I don't think, vampiric.
Yeah.
I think Ryan Murphy only did vampires when it was that dual season. It was in like Maine or something like that, and then it was about vampires in the community. And then he also did the second part of the season was about aliens, which was not my favorite season, by the way. He didn't do a very good job with either of those, but that's also a different story, a different
Yeah.
conversation.
Well, I'm just trying to think, has there ever been, I'm sure there is, but a show or a movie where there's vampires and witches together?
I'm trying to think. Well,
I'll have
yeah,
to.
in True Blood, one of the
Oh,
seasons when Marty, you know, she wreaks havoc on the town, and she's a witch.
oh,
Her
okay.
body gets inhabited by an ancient witch who was burned at the stake by vampires during the Spanish Inquisition, I believe. So yes, correct. They do not get along, at least in folklore that I've seen in pop culture on television.
Yeah. I don't know. Now I'm gonna be in my whole
That's a
like
whole different
rabbit hole
episode.
after I
That's a
get
whole
off with
different
you.
episode.
I am looking up. Apparently there's a book called Witches and Vampires.
I have to add that to my Amazon wish list for the holiday
Yeah.
season.
So whoever Brianna Witt is the author. So
Okay,
okay.
good to know.
And then yeah, I'm sure like they've tried to mix them together before. Oh, they're also saying A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness might have some intersecting lines about witches and
Hmm.
vampires. But okay. So I
We
will
digress.
ask yeah, we digress, but that's what the fun of this
Yeah, it is, of
conversation.
course.
I will ask you, do you think that like in Interview with the Vampire, the idea about being male parents, like do you read the two men when they create their vampiric child? Do you
Claudia,
see that as like an evidence or an example of commenting on gay male parenting?
yes, because again, when word got out that Louis and Lestat had Claudia, and they were kind of keeping to themselves, and they, were this prevalent family, but it was under the guise of it's so disgusting because you're vampires, not because you're two men. And in reality, it was society at that time looking down upon queer men being parents or even being out of the coffin, if you will, or, out of the shadows, because back to the beginning of what I had said even last time, because gay men have been portrayed as monsters for centuries, just because we like members of the same sex.
LGBT stories are universal, but each one speaks to the individual heart and soul of the writer telling it. Do you have a story to tell? Or have you been moved by an LGBT book, film, painting, television show, or other form of media? Then the Gay and Lesbian Review wants to hear from you. The GNLR believes in bringing awareness to queer art and artists through reviews, commentary, and thought pieces in which the author relates their personal lives to a particular piece of art, a novel, a movie. In addition to the print magazine, the GNLR also publishes articles on its blog. So you can see all of this on glreview.org. That's glreview.org. Remember, you get 50% off your subscription of the GL Review magazine when you use the promo code ITBR50. That's 50% off your print or digital subscription when you use promo code ITBR50. To learn more about submitting an article for the GNLR, visit their writer's guidelines. The link is located at the bottom of their homepage. And if you have any questions, email Stephen Hemrick. That's STEPHEN.HEMRICK@glreview.org. The GNLR and its readers can't wait to see what you have to say. Hi, this is Dr. Andrew Rimby, and I'm so excited to shout out the Gay and Lesbian Review, who is helping to sponsor the ITBR podcast. For all of you out there, the Gay and Lesbian Review is a bi-monthly magazine where you can discover new things about gay and lesbian literature, history, and culture. And the GL Review publishes essays in a wide range of disciplines, as well as a slew of reviews of books, plays, and movies, and a number of special features, such as artist profiles and their popular art memo column. Each issue of the magazine brings you consistently intelligent, lively, thought-provoking articles focused on a unifying theme. For example, their September-October issue centers on the theme Cracking the Closet. So, starting in the 19th century, a number of artists and writers found ways to crack the closet by expressing their sexuality between the lines or in the interstices of their work. For example, Ignacio Darnad, who is a friend of the ITBR podcast, he's been on our show, writes all about illustrator J.C. Leyendecker, whose work for Ivory Soap and Arrow Collars gave him plenty of opportunities to draw pictures of well-dressed and at times scantily dressed American men. And you also can find an article by Vernon Rosario, who has been on the podcast, and he talks about the quest for sex in the Middle Ages. So, to subscribe, visit glreview.org. That's glreview.org. Click subscribe. So on their website, go all the way over to the right-hand side and you'll see the button subscribe. Click subscribe and enter the promo code ITBR50 because you're getting 50% off your subscription to the print or digital edition of the Gay and Lesbian Review magazine. I can't wait for you all to have your copy of the Gay and Lesbian Review magazine, and make sure that you take a picture when your magazine arrives or when you're reading it online and tag the GL Review on Instagram and ITBR, and we'll share it out in our stories. Enjoy your reading, everyone.
So there's something very interesting about that just gave me goosebumps, because they put it under the guise of, oh, you're so disgusting because you're a monster and you're a vampire, not because you're two men living together in sin with this girl that may or may not be your daughter, or maybe you stole her out of a crypt or whatever, you know what I mean? So these people in that world, in that society of New Orleans especially, really couldn't have cared less if they were two men. It was because they were monsters.
Yeah.
And they
now
were
which
flipping the town on its head, you know? So
yeah. Now I will ask you, Joseph, how do you define like the supernatural magical? Vampires do have magical powers though, like witches, in my opinion, because they're able to possess, like they're able to sometimes like change the thoughts of their victims or whoever
mind
they want to
control,
turn.
they can
They can
fly,
mind
they
control,
can,
which like witches could do as well.
Mhm.
Right? So like really, where is the line? What's the difference? Like where a witch's power comes from compared to a vampire's power? Like a vampire has to continue to feed And I
Yeah,
guess a witch doesn't, but a witch does in
but
Hocus Pocus.
a
A
witch
witch does.
in the world of Coven,
Hmm.
they're born witches. They just don't have control over their powers. In Interview with the Vampire, they weren't born vampires. They
Yeah.
were they were killed and they were reborn vampires, but
Yeah.
they also have to work on their craft. So maybe that's the similarity between the two is they have to work on controlling their powers. But even Louis, Lestat told Louis when he's in the air about to attempt, to kill him, to beat him to oblivion, he said that not everybody, not every vampire can fly, for instance, when he's in the sky.
Mm.
And Louis bloody and guts everywhere and just at Lestat's mercy, you know what I mean, was confused as to why Lestat could fly. And I believe, and I could be incorrect, he told them that not every vampire has those powers. So maybe
Mm.
that's also learned, where the older you are, you can hone in on these magical mystical powers, as
Yeah.
opposed to a character like Claudia, who is just learning how to feed on humans to sustain life or her undead life. You know what I mean? And she doesn't have those powers quite yet.
Mm. Well, and if we're going to like the source material
Yeah,
of vampires, I mean, it really comes from Dracula and Bram Stoker, like from the beginning. Dracula, when he feeds on Lucy, it's in a moment of sexual frenzy. Like it's as if the vampire is having sex with
correct.
Lucy, but in like some bestiality. It's like a beast that Mina sees on
Yeah.
Lucy's body. But like, I will say, vampirism seems more sensual and erotic, in my opinion, than like witchcraft. Like,
Hmm.
witchcraft doesn't have to be sensual, even
Well,
though
because you're,
Emma Roberts loves the
yeah,
sensual aspect of the neighbor. But yeah.
because a vampire's fangs protrude through their gums when they're ready to feed, right? Which can translate into someone's about to have some kind of sexual relation with another person. You know what I mean? And
Like you're reading it as a phallic
of
marker.
course, of course it is. I mean,
Yeah. Is that why
those
there's more
fangs,
male vampires, you think?
absolutely, especially, why I think, and also why I'm writing a gay male vampire novella as a third part of the Voodoo series.
Yeah. Oh, that's so exciting.
It is literally about sex. It's a phallic symbol. You're protruding someone else's skin, right? You're puncturing someone else. You are literally entering another human being in order to
Yeah.
feed off of and sustain your own life, right?
Yeah. Well, you
However
know how many
random.
people are cosplaying as vampires in the bedroom? I think more are getting turned on by that than being
That's
witches in the
that's
bedroom.
sexy as hell. And to be perfectly honest, if we're really going to be transparent, there are also adult novelties out there that are of the vampire sense, both for both sexes. You know what I mean? So there, we definitely have uh, romanticized vampirism even more, but we've also fetishized it at the same time,
Yeah. I'm
especially
trying
now.
to imagine what toys you're talking about. It's just like, what are you
We can go offline
discussing?
and talk about those at a later time, Andrew. But I'm
I'm
just,
like,
this is the real me, and I just know these things,
yeah.
for
I'm
research
like
purposes. So
going through a Rolodex in my mind of what kind of toys these could be. Okay.
I'll text you
But
later. It's fine.
text me later. I need to figure that out. But I will say that like as we, you know, wrap up the Halloween special, which this has been
Yeah.
so fun, Joseph, is just like what is it in um Interview with the Vampire? Like, do you find because I know what draws me into Anne Rice's like when I first read the novel, but like every adaptation, even the Broadway musical Lestat that like didn't last a while, but I find
Right.
fascinating
Right.
is the like queerness, is the like blending of the maker um like the maker kind of losing control over the one they've made, or which is kind of like Fiona does connect to Coven, where Fiona is like so
True.
scared that the
This new
Supreme is
Supreme
rising
is
up against her.
rising, that she felt that she had to kill her. But I don't think that was necessarily the sense with Lestat versus Louis. I just think he was so jealous of maybe more of his freedom or more of his money or the way he held himself, as opposed to, or how easy it was that his spawn, had it much easier than Lestat did growing up as a vampire in his vampire sense. You know what I mean? But there's also that uh maybe jealousy or that somewhat of like an Oedipal, complex, wrapped in vampirism, especially in this series.
Well, and isn't it so? I mean, what upsets me though, because it feels so humanistic, Interview with the Vampire. Like that's something that you're
But
bringing to
that's the
my
draw,
attention.
Andrew. That's what makes watching it so heart-wrenching.
Well, that's why horror is
Literally,
a
when
great genre.
I mean, it's an amazing genre, but when Lestat turned Louis in the church, I was literally crying in my living room. That sense of fear, but the sense of love and wanting to create another vampire being and wanting to find a lover, right? That's your child, but that's also your brother, that's your lover, whoever they were to each other. That's romance, and that's why horror can be so romantic at the same time. And
Well,
what to my books.
and a
Yeah,
question that like I'm sure you reflect on in your books is exactly the one that Anne Rice reflected on, and I think is just done so well in this new series. By far, the new series is better than the movie, in my opinion. But
yeah, yeah,
because the queerness is not really present in the movie, and a strong, like romantic projected way of thinking about their
sure,
interconnection. But like, how can someone that you've shared intimate time with betray you like that? I mean,
right,
that's what I think is so mind-boggling to me in Interview with the Vampire. Like that you would harm someone you care so much about.
sure.
Um, so
Also,
like
he
yeah.
was jealous of Louis because also he had that bond. He created Claudia for him specifically, brought a child into the relationship, which doesn't always solve the problems in any relationship, right? Just my opinion, not being a father yet, but I would like to be someday. You know what I mean? Whether I'm still with my partner or not, I would still like to bring another part of that next generation into the world. But he was jealous of their relationship as well as one parent with a child, because Lestat was so fragile with his ego that he couldn't think past his own future and his own power.
Mhm.
But I also wanted to just mention before we close up, he was also bisexual, Lestat. He was
Yes.
having relationships with a woman that he had to keep secret, and he had to, fake her death in order to prove himself to his male lover. So there are a lot of things woven into that
Yeah.
series as well. Set in New
But
Orleans, which was amazing because I've
yeah, and
actually
I
been
think
to a lot of those locations in New Orleans as well. So just
yeah,
as
and like would you agree with the analysis that like my own analysis is in Coven, we're getting women who are subverting expected ideas about domesticity and like nurturing, like they can go in their own empowered pathways. But like in
sure.
Interview with the Vampire, we're getting male emotionality, male vulnerability, ideas about male parenthood. So they're kind of like they're both series that are doing similar things with gender, but just in
Yeah,
different divergent pathways. Like I think two men who do have a child, because I've thought a lot about when I have a child and I really want a child. I know though you're gonna get the question of why did you need a I mean, not that they'll say it directly to your face, but like that you're already anticipating like why would two men need to be maternal or like be nurturers?
right.
Like if people are stuck in these traditional rigid ideas about, men being the provider and women being um the mothers and maternal, which I don't
No,
believe in that kind of
me neither.
split binary. But I feel like men have to kind of defend themselves when they become parents together.
Because society tells us that we have to.
Hmm.
But we have to watch shows like this and read, and the creatives like myself have to break down those boundaries one page at a time and one show at a time to break down those barriers and those misunderstandings, you know in order to we need a revolution just as human beings, especially in this country. you know So that was beautifully done. But again, it was under the guise of because they were monsters, not because they were two men having relations in the bedroom, feeding off each other and having a child magically. It's because the queer people, have been painted as monsters. And I also struggle with that in my works, you know, in my healing. That's why I write the characters the way I do, you know, in order to push those boundaries every page, every word that I put down into my works. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what's so beautiful is recently I've had, like, just because I'm so open and public about my relationship or just who I am, like my sexuality, like I've actually had those who are straight friends or those who are in my suburban community. I'm sure you experience this in your suburban community.
Mhm.
Is I'm like, "Oh, do you know gay parents? Like, do you have neighbors who are gay who are raising a child?" And like they're starting to like think through and they're like, "Oh, not really," or "I haven't
Mhm.
really thought about it." And
Yeah,
I do think that because so much of the queer community is centered in the like New York City or in city centers, that what's beautiful though is to see how many queer families are in the suburbs or like just those who are openly themselves. Like why it's
sure.
so important to be visible and like
Yeah.
to have works like yours, that you promote Joseph in such a public way is
Yeah.
important. So like, you know,
But it took me a long time to get there, Andrew. I mean, that's pretty recent for me and has a lot to do with, my healing journey, my transformative past year and a half, and also my very close and dear gay friends, allowing me literally having conversations and breaking down those barriers and saying it's okay to be yourself. And then I'm like, well, hell yeah. And I'm then gonna continue to at least try to be a light or a beacon or um, a support system to those who don't have a voice.
yeah, lightning rod.
And that drives me to be even more myself in my works on social media with my clients and even in my community.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
truly
and I
important to
think
me.
there's so many who are queer in suburbia or in the countryside or rural areas. It's just that um right, I think that when they see that there are those who are open and who are um a mentor for them, right? Even if it's not spoken,
Yeah,
like you being out and visible is so important because then others have courage to be who they are. And I think that those who are closeted, in my opinion, a lot of it is because they're afraid that they're going to have a target on their back or,
correct.
they're going to be judged by the local community and they don't know how people are going to
Right.
communicate with them. Especially, I think if you're a man, you're nervous about how your male friends are going to react, or like, are you going to be accepted into the sporting events or continue to be gym buddies? And that's why I think I can say to everyone out there, if you are experiencing those questions, when you have such a strong community of gay male friends, like, you can all turn to each other. And like, I'm that way though, even with my straight friends. Like, I don't know
Right.
if you feel the same way, Joseph.
Yeah, I feel that, as we had talked about to draw this all together, this crazy, intensely amazing conversation that we had today. As far as Coven's concerned, yes, I had a lot more female friends growing up, even now. You know what I mean? I had male friends in high school and college, and they kind of fell by the wayside, not because of me being a homosexual or queer. It's just life is the way it is sometimes.
Mhm.
People kind of fall by the wayside and you grow in different directions. And I believe that's healthy, as sad as that may be, but that's the human condition, right? That's the human part of who we are. But I don't feel in any shape, way, or form in any kind of competition with my gay male friends. There is that love, and I can turn to my best friend, even now his fiance, and vice versa, and have those more intense, deeply personal conversations without judgment. And I don't think it's male
Yeah.
versus female. It's being comfortable with the person as a person, whether they're
Yeah.
gay, straight, whoever they are, you know.
Yeah.
But also, as I was going to say, you know, yes, I am the person I am today, and there are many people that are online that have helped me get here, you know, but it wasn't easy. And I had to literally, I forced myself out of the darkness. I didn't want to be a monster anymore. to the world, to my community, to myself. And that's why I'm unapologetically queer in my writing and on these podcasts and on social media, because it's just living your true self, living your and changing that storyline for yourself and living more authentically going forward. Absolutely.
Yeah. And the majority of your community doesn't want to see you as a monster. Like for everyone out there, the majority are so accepting. And I always just feel when you live in your truth,
Yeah.
you attract the empowering positivity. And if there are naysayers, they tend to just be silent and distance themselves. And that's a good thing because then you're not around that toxic energy anyway.
And there's no need for you to be around that if you're in your growth and in
Yeah.
your true form.
Like I
Mhm.
don't even think of the critics, like
Yeah.
because I just don't have that energy or time. Like I'd
No,
rather be
absolutely
around the
not.
empowering
Absolutely
people,
not. Correct.
you know, and know like Joseph is out there for you to talk to. I'm here. There's like so many who like reached out to me, Joseph, from our conversation, or they
Yeah.
really feel seen and loved. And that's why I love having these conversations because maybe you don't feel so comfortable having these conversations with your friends, but like you can hear a podcast or just feel the acceptance.
That you're
And
not
that's
alone.
yeah, you're not alone. And it's so like what we're doing right now. Like, I know I'm not curing a virus, I'm not curing the vampiric virus, but
Sure.
we are being heard. And that's an important register to, what am I trying to say? It's an important marker of what we're
Yeah,
doing,
it
of
is.
empowerment. So everyone out there, make sure you follow Joseph, right? How can they follow you on Instagram and your social media channels?
Yeah, so I'm a lot more productive on Instagram. Joseph A. Federico and the hashtag Joseph A. Federico. You can also go to anchors.publishing.com to learn more about my services. I, do run a full-time marketing agency and PR. And you can hop on barnesandnoble.com, look for Voodoo Juice, Origins Cody's Story. There's an ebook for $3.99, and I'm currently selling it through myself for a limited time during Halloween and beyond. And the holiday season is a great stocking stuffer for $21 plus shipping and handling. So a lot of clear lit ready for you guys to enjoy, and also help you come out of your own coffin and out of the darkness. So
Yeah, yeah. And when is your new book probably coming out, Joseph?
probably 2024 is what I'm hoping to go
Okay,
on vacation next summer to have another book signing in America South where these all take place. So
great. Okay. Well,
it's
I
about
know I'll have you.
vampires.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know. I'll have you back on. We'll chat.
Yeah.
You know, in the winter, we'll do something. I'm sure things will come our way. So thank you, Joseph. This was so
Thank you
fun.
for having me.
Yeah, happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, everybody, and stay spooky.
Yes. Okay, bye everyone. Hi, this is Dr. Andrew Rimby. I want to thank you so much for listening to the ITBR and TCIA episodes. Make sure if you don't, follow, rate, and review us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Also, make sure you follow ITBR on TikTok and Instagram at Ivory Tower Boiler Room and TCIA on TikTok and Instagram at True Crime and Academia. Also, we have a brand new Patreon membership system. So I just want to explain it to you all quickly. So if you want to become an ITBR student, it is $5 a month. You get ad-free ITBR and TCIA episodes and video interviews. If you want to become an ITBR professor for $10 a month, you get all of those ad-free benefits, but you also get access to both the ITBR and TCIA book clubs. You can join both book clubs, get ad-free episodes, plus you're going to get all of our extra video episodes. So I am rewatching Queer as Folk. Christian Garcia from That Old Gay Classic Cinema is joining us, and he's rewatching Smash. Mary is going to start to rewatch shows as well. You even get access to what I'm calling the ITBR Teaches. So if I'm recapping a movie or a TV show, including Barbie, Halloween movies and horror films, you get access to that as well. And then I also am offering consultation services. So for $30, you get your first initial consultation with me. It's a 1 hour private Zoom. I will help create your podcast, your media brand. How do you navigate academia as an undergrad or a grad student? Do you need help with technology? It could be teaching tools, Spotify for podcasters, video editor software. Do you want to expand your social media presence as an artist, writer, podcaster, or academic? Do you want help on how to create a public humanities identity like I've created for myself? So I'm offering that consultation service. You can find more info about it on Patreon. And you also can join our book clubs. If you want to just join the ITBR book club or the TCIA book club, you can do that for $4 a month. Patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room. That is patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room. Thanks to the team, Mary DePippi, our chief contributor, and thank you to our 2 new interns from Stony Brook University, Jonathan and Sarah. Bye, everyone. Until next time.